Hey friend, you're listening to Holistic Moms. I'm your host, Shan Wright, and I'm super excited for this episode today. This episode is in participation with the third edition of Podcasthon. This is the world's largest podcast charity initiative, bringing together podcasters globally to raise awareness for important causes without any money involved. It's all about uniting voices to make an impact and increase awareness for these amazing nonprofits and charities. For 1 week, more than thousands of podcasters will highlight a charity of their choice. And on March 18th, I featured Anna Gergen and Voices for Love. And today I will feature a special episode with Patrice Perrone and the Project Foundation. Patrice is the founder and director of the Project Foundation. She is an entrepreneur, creative, activist, and thought leader. And over the years, she has started several businesses and has served in many aspects in Christian ministry. She has devoted her life to helping others find freedom and live in their God-given purpose. Moms, this conversation is especially important for us and parents. We cannot avoid the reality of our world out of anxiety and overwhelm, but we have to face it and fight to protect our kids. You're going to learn how to do that and why in this amazing, important conversation. Let's go. Hey mama, are you overwhelmed by your full, blessed life? Do you feel stuck in the messy, mundane middle? Then I'm so glad you're here to take a breath. Hey, I'm Shan Wright, RN, holistic wellness coach, and a mom to four that went from perfectionism, control, and lots of anxiety to intentionally living through simple solutions and so much peace. If you are done with the stressed out life, hot mess express type of motherhood, then heat up that coffee again and let's live holistically well in the middle. Let's go. Okay, I am thrilled to bring you another amazing nonprofit to support the Podcasthon 2025. And whenever I heard about this worldwide charity event, I knew this is the exact person I needed to have on. So I am so pleased to welcome, once again, actually, she was on a former episode, but I'm so pleased to welcome Patrice Perrone to the show. Patrice, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for thinking of our organization and me. I appreciate and am honored to be here.
Yes. So Patrice and we've known each other for a very long time, and she is my spiritual mentor and mother, and I just love her to death. And she has a real strong mission on her life to care for people in the sex trafficking space. And she just rescues and educates and has just poured her life into a ministry. And so we want to know where this started, how you got on this path. When I was in high school, Patrice was doing my hair. Every dance and prom and everything, she's always doing my hair. And that's how I know her to be a hairstylist. But now in this new season of knowing her, she has a new heartbeat for a whole nother ministry. And so Patrice, take us to as far back as you need to go as to why you have this foundation and just how it got started and how it was placed on your heart and all of that.
Okay, let's see. So starting with you, Shannon, in high school, I'll start there since you were giving a backdrop to that. So my background, I'm a hairstylist and entrepreneur. I've opened several hairdressing hair salons, I should say. I love people. I'm creative. And so there's so many facets to that. And through the years, I ended up coming to the Lord. I feel like growing up, I grew up Catholic. And so I always knew Jesus, but I had an encounter with Jesus, the Lord, and made him Lord. And since that time, he just really gave me a heart for youth, particularly women, particularly, and just people in general. I love people. So through the process, I just got pretty radical, got plugged into Bible school and just kept going and was really searching out like, Lord, where do you want me to serve? So through those many years of service in youth and with teens, women's ministry, inner healing, other aspects of ministry. Through the process, I ended up called to Los Angeles from Delaware. Through that, started serving at a church in Los Angeles and meeting with mostly women, one-on-one pastoral counseling. And through that process, I was hearing some of their stories. And that really kind of plucked my heart. And this was well before we really knew about sex trafficking. Now, again, sex trafficking isn't new, it's historically way back. However, I was just hearing it and hearing stories of sexual exploitation and some struggles. So it really started to speak to my heart, as well as simultaneously, one of my mentees ironically invited me to an outreach. And she had said, she called me and said, Patrice, will you come on this outreach with me? And I said, sure. Well, what is it? And it was an outreach to strip clubs in Los Angeles. And she said, I know you won't judge me. My sister is a stripper in Texas. And I just feel like if I go and help other women, God's going to send someone to help her. So, of course, I'm like, yes, I'm going to go. And it kind of started there, if you want the truth. I ended up basically going with her. And it's an organization, Harmony Dust, who's a dear friend of mine. And she has treasures. I am a treasure. And through that process of going and the outreach, it was very interesting. I felt God said, serve here. And that started my service and understanding of the dynamic. Now, again, it was going into strip clubs because that was Harmony's, what she came out of. And for me, I just was there as, Lord, how do you want me to serve? And he was really talking to me about what's more apparent now. It was kind of futuristic, if you will. It was like, okay, seeing these like sex trafficking, sexual exploitation, what we're really seeing now. But it was so premature. When I would talk about it, people basically was like, oh, that only happens in LA. And I was like, no. And I felt a bit, like people didn't really believe it was happening. And now to today, it is happening. And we can see it all over the news, all over the airwaves. And, it's everywhere, all across the United States. But that was the start of the Project Foundation. That's the ministry that I started way back, I'll say 12 years ago. And it was predominantly to bring awareness to this topic because I was seeing no one was really aware. And then through that process, we have several projects and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And to date, I'm in New Mexico with one of our projects called Project Broken Arrow, where we work with the indigenous. And we just finished a task force meeting. So I'm going to take a breath and let you ask me some more questions.
Yeah. Okay. So this passion for these people started when you were with Harmony in her ministry. And what led you to then start your own or to start the Project Foundation? How did you go from that to starting your own?
Yeah, I kind of skipped a story, and I think it's really where God starts to prompt our hearts. And sometimes we're seeking him out and, there's so many places we can serve and help and, bring the love of Christ to people. So I think what was really prompting me is as I was helping with Harmony, I also do hair and makeup and I was working on film sets. And so I just kept having this in my face. And I think sometimes the Lord just does that to us, right? He kind of keeps putting things in our path. So I was invited to do hair and makeup on a set. And that wasn't unusual, but what was unusual was the woman that was inviting me, she said, it's a porn set. And I was like, oh, no way am I doing that. I work with the youth, I'm a minister, all these things. And as I was praying and seeking the Lord, he kept just pressing upon me to go. And if you don't go, who am I going to send? So that I did go. And it was 8 women that I did hair and makeup. I would not recommend anyone go there. I'm not saying that. I felt like it was a calling. So And that's the word. I feel like God was really calling me to build an organization out of this moment in time, because I thought, wow, where are the resources? Who knew? Because he was really opening my eyes to these 8 women that I was doing their hair and helping with makeup. Obviously, it was like I said, I didn't really see anything, thank the Lord Jesus. Nevertheless, it was just, my heart was just compassionate to have my eyes open to, who are these people? Why would they put themselves in this situation? One woman in particular, she was probably in her 20s. She came to visit me outside of that set in the hair salon to do her hair. She had alopecia. She had a 2-year-old. And just quickly, as I was talking to her in the hair salon, she just assumed I did that all the time on those sets. Well, ironically, she was a Christian. Her husband, who she was married to, was a Christian as well. Parents were leaders in a church in the South, and they moved out here, maybe out of rebellion. I'm not sure. Maybe just wanted to change. They moved out here, meaning from the South to Los Angeles, out west,
Mhm.
not to do ministry, to do music, because her husband was working in worship, if you can imagine. And they found themselves needing money, and
Mm.
they ended up, her husband found us something that they could do together, and it was porn.
Mm.
And he was like, hey, we can make X amount of dollars. Let's just do it. And that's how they started. So it really opened my eyes to, I was able to minister to her and all the things, right? And ask her questions. And it was so cool because the Lord really let her know that I was there really for her. If only her, that's all it was. And so I was able to minister to her, keep up with her a little bit. She brought her husband in. But my point is, through that, I felt like the Lord was wanting me to start something. And I was really like, what? And there was so many facets to it. I really need to lean in on him, because trafficking's huge, and there's so many elements and layers to it, and understanding and education now that I know now. Back then, I didn't even know where to begin, to be honest with you. And so through that, the Project Foundation was born. It started out with bringing awareness and education. So what we do is we educate, we empower, and to eradicate sex trafficking, sexual exploitation of women and children everywhere. We predominantly work in the United States, but we have done some things overseas as well, periodically, but our focus has been in the US. My heartbeat is prevention, because I really see that, especially on your podcast, I'm like with moms and parents and leaders, like, oh, we need to really stop this before it starts. We do help in recovery, but honestly, if we can stop it before it starts, if we can give the tools to the parents, if we can, without fear, not instilling fear, but the wisdom to know some of the tools and things that they can, the resources that are available. And thank God there is so much more resources and knowledge than when I started.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to get into all those resources and things that parents and moms need to know. But first, I'm going to ask, because it's all about education, I'm going to ask a
Right.
very elementary question, but
Mhm.
I think it's important. What is human trafficking?
What is human trafficking? That is a very good question. And it's basically, if someone's under 18, consensual or not, according to the law, they are considered a traffic victim of human trafficking, sex trafficking. Human trafficking has labor, it circumferences labor and sex trafficking. So it is coercion against someone's will for
Mhm.
sale.
So whether they're in doing any kind of labor or providing sexual favors in any way without their will and consent and getting paid, that is human trafficking.
Yes, it's through coercion. And a lot of times sometimes I think the discrepancy a lot of times is, like I said, if they're under 18 and they're consenting to, let's say, a sex for money, they are considered a victim of sex trafficking. If it's labor, we do more in the sexual side of things. However, human trafficking, circumference is everything.
Mm,
And so there's a lot of labor trafficking. And I would say when they fall into labor because of the vulnerability, most likely they're dealing with both, where they feel like they are threatened for like immigration, for example,
yeah.
all the things. There's so many layers to it. So they might be out on the field working, let's say, and saying yes to it, but because they don't have any other option or choice, and they've possibly been threatened or coerced in, you'll get your papers, for example,
Right.
those kind of things. And in terms of sex, it can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for giving that information because I think a lot of times we hear these terms and we're like, well, that sounds like something I should know, but I don't. I was never explained and educated on it, and so I think it seems far away. And I think part of your prevention and education is letting moms and parents know that this is closer than you think. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I think, I mean, many of you've probably seen The Sound of Freedom, for example.
Yeah.
Great, great movie. I loved it. I like really support what they were standing for and doing. And it really opened up a lot of opportunities for us as an organization because people were awake. The thing that concerns me is people think that's the only way it happens, although that is what's most predominantly happening is our children, I'm saying young children under 18, are being groomed on internet through their games, in school, through people they know. Most victims of trafficking are someone that's familiar to them, that they feel safe with. People really don't realize that at first. They think it's your child was abducted out of a park, let's say, or out of a store. Although that happens, that is not the majority of the
Mm.
cases that we're seeing right now.
Okay, so I know you were saying that 2025, there it is actually even becoming more prevalent, and there's things that we need to be aware of, not out
Mhm.
of fear, living in this fear state, but we
Mm-mm.
need to be aware of to protect our children. Can you share some
Right.
of those things?
Yeah, I think educating yourself, number one, is very important, and staying not just once, updating the education, the tools, some resources that are there that I can share at the end. But keeping yourself educated, starting community within your school or your church, your youth group. I think, as communities, we have to come together. Like, for example, we started a task force in Gallup, New Mexico, and that because we want community efficacy so that the community can help and law enforcement can work together in the collaboration. It's important that we collaborate together on a large scale to eradicate this and prevent it and stop it. But as a parent, dialoguing and asking questions to your children, that's so elementary. But sometimes I think we're so busy with our own stress, especially after COVID, we saw such an increase in the statistics from
Yeah.
that point because our youth, our kid, everybody was online. And because everyone was online and the stress that, parents had on them and having their children home all day long and trying to work from home and all the things that we had to deal with, it really increased this vulnerability online. We see that with law. We work with HSI. We work with law enforcement, and I'm listening to the statistics. And from that point, it has increased.
Do you know any of those statistics offhand? Is that
Yeah, now you're testing me because the statistics. Yeah, actually, and one I just asked my friend Doug Gilmore, who's amazing, by the way. He's a historian. I think he said 300% increase. And I will have to get you some of that because I just heard him say that yesterday. And I was like, okay, Doug, what is that statistic? So um, the thing with statistics, I'll be honest with you, as soon as we get them on paper, they've already increased. Unless
yeah.
we've really done our work and seen a a decrease because you can in certain, we can see that in communities. It's a little bit when you break it up into communities, you can really have a better understanding of the statistics. I don't keep them in my head, to be honest with you, that much. Not that they aren't wowing people, but by the time they wow people, they're already,
Yeah.
beyond. They're 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 not current, is my point.
Yeah. I'll
Really
be
not current.
honest.
Tell me.
Sometimes though, statistics or just to know the prevalence helps someone
Hmm.
like me who thinks, well, this couldn't happen to my kid. I mean, we live in this really great town in the United States. Like this couldn't
Yeah.
happen to my kids. And so
Hmm.
hearing sometimes like, I don't know what it is, but like one in however many this happens to when they're online or when they're I don't know what I guess that brings me to a new question though, but yes, I think sometimes knowing those things helps make it seem more real and that it is something to be aware of. But then, yeah, what are some of the ways that it's happening to the everyday kid that is in like a safe town, typically safe, crime's low, but they are online. They
Yeah.
they go to school, they come home. Like how is some of the ways that it happens?
So mostly online. So online games, there's a lot of perpetrators posing as another youth.
Okay.
And so there's that. And
Okay.
so, each parent, how they handle their children online, gaming and time online obviously varies, right? So I think it's important that we monitor that as parents because that can reduce the vulnerability to your child. However, that person is on there grooming your child. They're on there for a reason and they'll get back in and play that game. And before you know it, your child will call that person their friend. And then it can go from there. There's so much with technology now. I mean, I can be talking about something and it's coming up on my phone. That's scary, right? It's
Yeah.
like, what? So, there's a lot of things that we work with, we collaborate a lot. So some of it's, I'm like, wow, what are they doing? And there's so many tech groups out there that are doing some amazing work because we see that this is a problem. As far as the online, another way that it could happen is, and I'm just going to say online, boyfriends, girlfriends, we're seeing it on TikTok, we're seeing it on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere you can meet
Connect.
someone online and connect is an opportunity for a perpetrator to groom and befriend. They don't just come out of nowhere. They actually take the time and learn about their suspect, we'll say. And something that was really powerful that I really stands out to me is a lot of times if the child is like engaged, they'll threaten the child. And so I think an important thing that a parent can say to their child when they're talking to them about issues and online safety is always remember I'm your parent. You never have to protect me. I'm to protect you. That's my role. So if anyone ever threatens, say mommy or daddy or the caretaker of the child, always remember that you don't need to protect me because I think a lot of times that's what it, the perpetrator will do, threaten,
Okay, it's like a
maybe no one,
tactic of them.
the tactic. And so if you can instill in your child that they don't need to be afraid of that, if they can always come to you and keep that open dialogue and that that's not their job.
Hmm.
I think that's important because, that it's not, nothing's going to happen to mommy or daddy, so that they know, because that's one of the main tactics, especially with young, but it's not even just young, it's teenagers. And
Yeah.
I've even seen that with young adults. They threaten their families, they know their address, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Are there any other like tactics that you know of? Like, years ago we were saying, okay, don't take candy from a stranger because we knew that
Yeah.
was a tactic. Is there any other like that's a good one, but are there any others that the perpetrators tend to lean towards that can trick
Mm.
these kids?
Yeah, I think the difficulty, I just heard this weekend. they were saying about stranger danger and how we used to teach on stranger danger. And somebody said something and it really kind of sat with me. And I don't know if this is answering your question necessarily, but they said, now it's no longer a stranger. And it just kind of threw me because that's the truth. Yeah, tactics, threatening, giving gifts, manipulation. There's a kind of, it could be posing as a boyfriend, taking the time, really, and the word grooming, they use that as a terminology. It's really just befriending, showing support. It seems like a good thing. So that is a tactic. And then over time, once they're already, they create that tie or soul tie or whatever you want to call it, that relationship in, even if it's dating, it can be. Next thing you know, something else happens. Obviously it has many facets. When it's older, there's drugs, there's other things that, a crossover. But if we're talking about, depending on the age group, that we're working with, I think when a parent has, uh, teens and that are dating, I think that's really, we have to start with healthy relationships when they're young.
Yeah. So I know, like you said, prevention and education is a big thing. How
Mhm.
can we get educated? That
Yeah.
also is a very basic question, but how can we be educated on this?
Well, there's so many tools that are out there right now. In terms of education, I just sat in a meeting with it's called NETMEC, which is the Center of Missing Children. Let me give you so it's Missing and Exploited Children, NETMEC, and they have so many tools on their website. I had no idea that they had this much information. It's called Kids Smarts. It's KIDSMARTZ.org. They have so many resources on there that you can do that from the privacy of your home to get educated. And I would encourage you to get some education and tools. That's a good one. That one's really fresh in my mind. So if you go on their website, you can find classes. We also work with, and we are partners, our organization, with the Blue Campaign. You could go to their website as well, and they have some training on it. So it's the bluecampaign.org. And they have some education. They're just quick. There's so many. I would ask you to reach out to me personally, Patrice at theprojectfoundation.org, and I can send you more resources. We work on posting some through our Facebook page, follow us, our Instagram, and we go in and do meetings. So we are affiliated and collaborate with educators. Reach out. We'll host an education seminar in your home, at your school, at your church, educate parents. And we've done it with law enforcement and business owners. So we have a wide variety of education and support that we can bring to you. We can do via Zoom. So education is a key.
Okay, so is that, would you say the main way to help prevention is just to be educated?
Yeah, I think, knowledge is power, right? So you definitely need to be educated. You need to know, where do you go if this happens? Let's say,
Mhm.
like, there's so many things to, just in our time together, that there's so many facets. Like, if your child's missing, where do you go? If you suspect something, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then how do you plug in some things for your children? And how can I be a proactive parent? And how do I, as a community, it takes a village to raise a child. So who is my core group around my children? And obviously we have the Holy Spirit, and he gives us wisdom and discernment. So, I like to teach on a faith component in regards to this as well. Like, how do we discern? What do we do? What we, in protecting our children. And because I'm seeing so many children that are raised up in the Lord, and then they, you know, uh, rebel, and maybe they're just looking for their own identity. But in that, we want to stand on our word, the word of God, and what we've instilled in our children, and keep that relationship open,
Yeah.
dialogue. So,
Yeah, I think that was another thing that you brought up that hit me was be educated as a parent, but also you then have to communicate that to your child and per their age, right? So you were saying, telling your kid, mommy's supposed to protect you, don't feel like you have to protect me in a way. But then are there other things like that we're learning that we then have to communicate to our children at, like, for example, putting rules and boundaries on certain games that they play. And there are some
absolutely.
really cool parental controls that you can do on some of those
Hmm.
games,
Hmm.
but even telling them, I'm putting this parental control on, or I can't put a parental control on, but you cannot, do X, Y, and Z. Are there, we have to communicate that in a certain way continually, like repetitively, right?
100%. And I feel like where parents can get weary in doing that, and then your child can go to a friend's house, or you
Yeah.
know, go to somebody who's not doing what you're doing. So I mean, so we have to hit it at all on every level. Yeah, there's some really great tools that were updated. We just were in DC, our organization, and some of those I do want to share with you while you're saying that, talking about some tools that you can put on as a safety net for your children. Game Safe is one.
Okay.
Harm Lock is another. Lead Me Not is another. If anyone wants to reach out to me and I can give you some information, some tools, some links, I would love that because there's so much. And I think because I just got out of a meeting, I'm like overloaded because there
Yeah.
are so many. And then they update. And so as a parent, going back to what you were saying, Shannon, is it's hard, it's difficult, and that's why we need other parents, other asking the questions, keeping that dialogue with our children, and guarding. I think it's important for us to guard their eye gates, their ear gates, give them limitations. Obviously, we know as they grow, they're going to stretch and cross boundaries, and we just have to be aware of that and pray, really safeguard our children,
Yeah.
and just really empower them. I think when, our part of it's educate, empower, it's not just a victim, it's empowering our kids, empowering our community to stand against this. And then there's the, like, who do we trust? So, I mean, obviously we trust God, and then we use wisdom and get the resources in our hands that we need. And even if they're changing, we need to be updated on it because they're changing so quickly.
There's a few things we recently got into a game that can go online,
Hmm.
and there's not a way to change it. And my kids love playing this game together. Being in communication with them all the time on who are you playing with, what's going on right now, and putting all the safeguards that I can up to make sure. But to not just, again, to be repetitive, not just do it once, but to do it again and again. And
Hmm.
then the other thing is that you said is guarding their eyes and ear gates, just as we have to do as adults. We know how it
Correct.
affects us when we
Hmm.
see something or hear
Hmm.
something. It goes inside. And so to be vigilant on that, knowing that there's a war out there that is trying to get to your kids' eyes and ears
That's right.
constantly. For example, there's a new movie that just came out recently, and my kids have been begging to see it. And I said, no, you're not allowed to watch that on your own. We will watch it
Hmm.
together as a family, not in the theater, because I can't pause it and explain things. We're going to watch it as a family in our living room. And I tell you, I paused it, I don't know, like 6 or 7 times, and explained to them what was happening, and that all the people in the world don't believe everything that we believe, and they don't act morally as we would act. Like, there's things that happen, and we have to
Hmm.
be aware. And again, same like thing, not to put fear in them, but to let
Hmm.
them be aware that we are
Hmm.
in a spiritual war, and again, play it on their level. I do have kids that range in ages, and I don't think I scared any of them, but I did let them know, like,
Mhm.
this actually what you're seeing right now, this is not real, but some people do believe this in the world. And so I
Yeah.
want you to know that we would not do this. We would go to God in this situation. Like,
Yeah. I
yeah,
I love what you're saying because here's the other thing when I'm a mom, as you know, and she's grown. And I was a single mom, and I just have such compassion for parents now because of all these, because of technology and the films and how, like, I mean, you can't even turn on your TV without seeing same sex, all things that I
yeah,
just go, what? Sex in itself. I mean, everything, right?
yeah,
Everywhere. You can be driving down a road, and in some places you'll look at what do you call it, a poster, and you're like,
yeah.
what? And you're
Billboard.
like, how do I even guard my child? That's what I'm thinking. So I have compassion for parents right now. I think when I was hearing you, yes, it's our responsibility, and yes, we trust God, and yes, as a believer and who brought my own daughter up in the Lord, um, there's a point where we do all we can do, and we have to trust God. And then when you were sharing, I think, like, when I think back, I'm like, how could I have done this better or that better? Because I think as parents, we always ask ourselves these questions. And like, it's that's why I think it's so important that we do have a community to share with. Hey, how did you do this with? How did you do this well? Or what do you suggest? And in how do we talk? Like when you were sharing about how you would share, like, who are you talking to on there? Maybe it's more like, and maybe you did this, hey, like when you were on the game, like who's your friend that you're playing? Like almost engage them. I think we need to stop and pause as parents because we can be so, and I'm not saying that was you. I know I've done that. We can easily do that. Like, who are you talking to on there? And right away they're guarded like something's wrong. And then it
Mm-hmm.
could cause them, the very thing we're protecting could actually cause them to rebel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the more we kind of get creative ideas on how to engage them, play with them online, um, and kind of have that insight and discernment on how do we not have them feel like they can't do anything, because once we put those parameters in, it becomes another thing and they could rebel against it, right? So it really takes a community, some creativity, and parents need support.
Yeah.
Parents need support. Some I learned today, and I did not know this, and it's another resource that some, not your age group, your young children, but some of these young kids have online pornography, and they might be with a perpetrator doing something online, and then their photos are crossed who knows where. Well, there is a resource that you can actually get that taken off. I did not know that. That was not the case that long ago. So there's all kinds of resources that are available because every situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
Every age group is different. You can't, I think we start out young, but what does that look like? You're treating sex trafficking? No, we're healthy relationships.
Yeah.
How do they have healthy relationships, healthy boundaries? And I know you as a mom, and you're so much more proficient and a good mom. I know that about you because I know you. Some moms don't even have the tools. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think your podcast is awesome because you're giving them, that's a tool. I think as a community, and prayfully in some, there's some faith communities, unfortunately, that aren't safe or don't have, the same tools, which is sad. Not everywhere is safe that we think are safe. So I think building a strong community around who's our safe core group is huge, and developing that and being a voice, because Shannon, it's not just my voice. My goal and why I had this organization is to raise it up, bring awareness, to have an army to be able to have a voice. I don't know all of the answers to some of the technical questions and all the things that law enforcement knows, all the statistics, but I do know we have a huge problem, and God's called me to raise awareness, raise my voice, and build a community that can actually go, oh, I'm not afraid of learning this. I want to learn more. I'm not going to avoid it. I'm not going to turn my back to it because this is happening. And guess what? It's not just happening to um, kids in the foster system, kids that are gang related or low income family. Maybe they're higher risk. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, with internet, with technology, with children, vulnerability, that they are vulnerable just because they're children.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. So we have to actually really get equipped. And, I don't have all the equipment, but I do say, hey, reach out to me if you need some. If you will say, hey, I want to have this at my house, I can do a much better job at getting the people who know or doing a presentation that can allow people to have that, build a community so that they can really start, helping each other and holding their each other accountable because, parents, we need a break.
Yeah.
We do. There's so much in our own lives, right? Especially if there's single parenting,
Yeah.
marriage issues, financial issues. It's difficult. It's not
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. So don't get stressed out about it. Just take these intentional steps and action to put the prevention and education in place, and then it would bring you peace.
Yes. Well said.
All right. Well, that was so good. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Again, I know you mentioned it, but tell again where people can get in touch with you to get resources,
Yes.
education, and just support the Project Foundation.
Yes. We are looking for partnerships. Funding is essential. We need so much help because I started this grassroots. I do not get paid for this. We have a team and it's growing. We're like, we want to do this. I already do this full time, and so does my partner. That's really, she's been a godsend. So we need some support. We need all hands on deck. It's theprojectfoundation.org.
Mm-hmm.
If you just reach out, fill out, subscribe to our newsletter, you can learn more about us and just reach out and email to us.
Yeah.
And you can reach it out to me directly, reach through email, Patrice Perrone. Patrice at the Project Foundation. I was giving you my personal, which you could have too, Patrice Perrone at Gmail, but Patrice at the projectfoundation.org. Reach out to me. You could follow us on Instagram. You could reach out there, Facebook, follow us, and become a partner. And if you want to have us in your school, education, even if you're wherever, in any location, we've gone from Delaware, we're doing a work, New Mexico, we are not limited to California. Matter of fact, I think we do more work outside of California.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Patrice, for sharing all the information, the education, and to empower us as moms. It's super, super important. And I'm just so grateful that you've opened my eyes. And so that is a wrap on this special, very special episode as part of the Podcasthon. If you've enjoyed it, feel free to visit www.podcasthon.org to discover all the thousands of other associations through the voices and talents of other podcasters that are presenting these amazing nonprofits and charities that are doing amazing work and they need support. So thank you, Patrice, for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Hey, Wellness Warrior. I pray that blessed you. And if so, it would bless me big if you would write a 5-star review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Not only would this make me super happy, but it will allow for others to find this show too. Also, I love to chat over on Instagram, so make sure to take a screenshot, share to your Instagram stories, and tag me at @TheShanWright so I can see it and we can keep chatting and bring other moms to chat with us. Until we get to chat again, mama friend, may the Lord's face shine upon you and give you peace.